Will the legacy of Nico Harrison be defined by what happens with this Luka Doncic trade, or can it be anything else? On today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm gonna get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs,
Great, Wesley.
your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with it, dogged up.
You are locked on the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Isaac. I'm one of your co-hosts covering the Mavs for the last 10 years, alongside Nick Angstead. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. Go listen to Locked On NBA Big Board. Raphael and the guys. It's draft season, guys. Please run. So go listen to that show. If you're a true Mavs fan, you already signed up for our newsletter. Signed up for our text program. You get all the latest news to that. If you're not, you can scan the QR code right there. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Let's talk about a new topic today. Nico Harrison. Haven't talked about Nico in a long time. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for us to talk about him, talking about the trade. I don't feel like we've covered the trade that much or covered all the angles of it. So I want to talk about it a little bit again. Love sarcasm. I think one of the hardest things to talk about, or at least for me, like personally, even though it's part of our job in the sports media world and in this business, is talking about somebody losing their job. Like, it sucks, right? Like if you just take the job title or the job out of it, I'm sure a lot of you guys listening, maybe you've lost your job before, whether it's, getting laid off or getting fired, or you have a loved one that's lost their job before, and it sucks. I've been there. Like we've been there. I've seen that when I was growing up. I've seen it as an adult, and it sucks. And so I don't take it lightly whenever, we've been doing this pod now for 8 or 9 years. And, there's very few times in which I'm like, hey, this person should be fired. I look at I go back to this question I asked the other day at the press conference. It feels like every day since then. I mean, today is Friday. So every day this week, someone sent me a new clip of some other podcast, talking about it, whether it's a former player like Draymond. Somebody sent me yesterday Jeff Teague's podcast, in which, he has a couple of guys on his pod. And they're like naming me by name. I'm like, oh crap, here we go. So you just never know what you're going to get because, for them in the Mavs universe, I would say the majority of Mavericks fans want Nico Harrison fired. Outside of that universe, I've started to experience a lot of people or players or whatever that really hate the question and feel differently about it. So it's part of the business in that. But I do start thinking about like what will be Nico's legacy, like what, because Tim McMahon, a friend of the pod and everything, obviously has this Luka book that's came out, The Wonder Boy. Saw it at Barnes and Noble the other day, so make sure you go pick that up sometime. A lot of cool Mavs nuggets in there. But Tim McMahon was on the Bomani Jones show on YouTube, in which he was talking about Nico. And I want to pull a couple quotes from Tim there and then kind of dissect them a little bit. He says this on the Bomani Jones show. It says, Nico, obviously, he was running Nike's North American basketball ops for a long time. We know this about Nico. Tim goes on, that's a well-paying position. So is being a general manager of an NBA team. Maybe he just rides off into the sunset. I don't know. But Tim says, but there's I was talking to somebody who's on the ownership group of another Western Conference team recently, and they basically said, I hate to say it, but this is going to be his legacy. This trade is his legacy. Like, he's never going to work in the NBA again. And it's crazy. I started thinking about it, and this is where I kind of landed on. I think he just got too close to the sun. I think you look at the career arc of Nico Harrison, and you look at somebody like Nico, and it's I mean, he had a pretty high approval rating, right? Like he's working at Nike. He works for Nike over 20 years. He works his way up there. He gets to work with the Kobe's of the world and securing these long-term deals for these athletes and builds all these relationships around the league. We know this. This is what was the selling point when they hired Nico to be GM. He's working for a huge name brand like Nike. Then he's the first of like his kind of to get this like GM position, to go from a company like Nike and sponsorship straight into the general manager world of the NBA because he has all these relationships. And then he swings for the fences on trades, like he trades away Kristaps Porzingis in his first trade deadline. Like, whoa, big move, bold move. Trades him to Washington. He kind of puffs out his chest a little bit with the Brunson negotiations, kind of. He tries to play it slick, but he's like, I'm calling the shots in this. It was wrong. It was a debacle, but he was in charge. And then you look at the Kyrie Irving move. There wasn't a lot of teams lining up to get Kyrie Irving, but Nico was like, I'm going to be the guy who trades for Kyrie Irving, who says it's a risk not to trade from him and makes it work and like brings Kyrie back and all this stuff to where people is going to be looking at Nico and like, you took the chance and it worked out that good. You made the swing. He made Kyrie work. The legacy was going great, right? Like he's kind of the first in all of these things and has this great legacy at Nike. He's the first GM to do this thing. He takes these big swings and thinks he's going to make Kyrie Irving work. And he's kind of like, this is what I feel. This is what I feel is the case. I'm kind of like paving a new path here. This is what I'm going to be known for. This is my legacy here. And he got too close to the sun. I think he felt it a little bit too much and started envisioning what the legacy of Nico Harrison is going to be. The chest is a little too big. He's feeling invincible. Imagining the feeling when he's the one who traded Luka Doncic and was proven right. Like that's the ultimate cherry on top for these things of like, he's kind of like a pioneer in this business. And it's like, all right, I'm feeling myself here. And man, that sun's bright and it melted him for the time being, obviously. And it's just like, man, and the fact that like, you get too close to the sun because you don't have enough people on the ship with you to tell you, hey man, you're headed right towards the sun. All right. And he's like, no. I'm going to be the one who flies the ship into the sun and I'm going to survive it. And it's tough. And I agree with this person in the ownership group of another Western Conference team that told Tim McMahon his legacy is going to be defined by this. I 100% agree. Doesn't matter about the Kyrie Irving trade anymore. Doesn't matter that he was one of the first of his kind to come over from a Nike, from a brand into a GM role. It doesn't matter about the Porzingis trade feels like forever ago. None of that stuff matters. Everything will be tied to Nico Harrison about this trade. And it's just wild to think about how that's kind of like going, how it's kind of unraveled a lot of stuff. I know a lot of people want to bring up like, oh, there's these other bad decisions that Nico made as a GM and all this stuff. I get that. And I've said on this pod forever, like good thing that he's done as a GM before the Luka trade. You could counter it with a thing like Jalen Brunson or something like that. But collectively and how he was viewed around the league and some of these deals and the fact that they've went to a finals and conference finals, like collectively, the opinion of Nico was pretty good until now. And now a lot of people, including this executive who told Tim McMahon said on Bomani's show, you have to fire him. That's the only way to begin the healing process of the Mavericks fan base. Now that's coming from another team. So, you see that perspective from another team, but the further we get out from the trade, the further I wonder, man, what is it going to take? And I don't know. Let's take a quick break. And then I want to talk about Jason Kidd.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Yeah, insert ad music coming back from the break. Fun break there, right? Shout out to Kyrie Irving being at the Clippers game with the Clippers and Nuggets in LA in the new arena. Looks super cool. Shout out to the horse mascot costumes they gave to people on the wall for the Clippers fans there. It's fun. I've been enjoying playoff basketball in a weird way. There's just like no emotions attached. So, I mean, obviously I want the Lakers to lose because I hate the Lakers, but love you, Luka, but I still want the Lakers to lose. But there's like no emotions. So I'm kind of like watching it in like a free way. Maybe I'll resonate with that of like watching the playoffs and just like enjoying basketball and not being emotionally tied to it. But Tim McMahon continued to talk on Bomani's show, and he was talking about Jason Kidd because this is somebody I am fascinated with the future of. I feel like we know kind of the direction that it's probably headed for Nico Harrison. Timeline still muddy. You still don't know what that's going to look like there. But what happens with Jason Kidd, man? I would say over the past few weeks, maybe month, I feel like I've heard so many different types of grumblings about Jason Kidd that, I mean, from a lot of different ranges, right? From he's going to outlast Nico here to could he be the first domino to fall to will he voluntarily be the first domino to fall and takes a better outlook position somewhere else because he has relationships with players and stuff around the league. Is he eyeing something else? I've just heard so many different things in regards to Jason Kidd. And I do, you go back and I feel like the first question, I think back to that Houston home game, that first home game post trade. And I remember getting there in the arena and I remember getting up to the press box after talking with people around the arena and just everybody was just, holy crap, where were you? What did you think? What's really going on? It was just like an information fest of media, team people just trying to figure out what's going on. But I remember getting up to the press box, setting my stuff down, and another fellow media person kind of hollered over at me and was like, "Hey, do you think Jason Kidd knew?" And I go back to that question a lot because you heard a lot of things going for a while now. I mean, for a year or two now of the frustrations that built up with Luka, right? With the organization, some with Jason Kidd, of just this desire. Feels like I'm like talking about like like your kid or a student. It's like, man, I just want the best for you. I just want you to see you hit your full potential. Feels like some like, I don't know, some motivational speech or something. But honestly, it's like there was this frustration because it's like, oh man, you're so good now. But if you could change X, Y, and Z, you could be like here and it'd just be insane and like all this stuff. So you hear some like frustrations building up. And then after the trade, it felt like it feels like even, since then up until now, there's been a lot of trying to, which I would do the same thing if I was Jason Kidd too, trying to separate himself from this trade. From that first super small Cleveland media session in which Nico Harrison walks out and makes a joke at the beginning. Still one of the most least aware things I've ever seen in my lifetime in the sports world. But, they say there, Nico says the other day in the exit interview presser, I brought Jason in on the 11th hour. But he has said that they were aligned on the same vision, same philosophy, way of thinking, and all this stuff. I think it's very, very true to say that Jason Kidd was brought in on the 11th hour on the day of to tell him that a trade was happening regarding Luka. But you can also say there were plenty of conversations and plenty of frustrations and feelings expressed upwards from Jason Kidd about Luka in the past leading up to that. So I think that's very, very accurate. I'll say that, and very possible. So Tim says on the Bomani Jones show, he says, after Christmas, that was Luka's fourth calf strain in 28 months. Same calf, left calf. Nico definitely blamed poor conditioning for that. Tim continues on. Luka's people said, hey, he's come back too soon from injuries, including the left heel. He's whatever. So there has to be a divide between Luka's camp and Nico for sure. And the level of frustration that Nico had at that time was high. Tim continues, by the way, Jason Kidd's was high too, as far as level of frustration. I think Kidd's kind of tired. Sorry. He says, I think Kidd's kind of try to distance himself from this trade, but Kidd's frustration level with Luka was also quite high. Tim says he was told at the time, hey, if we got to trade him, and obviously this was off the record, they traded him now, so he'll say it now. This is Tim talking. If we got to trade him, we'll trade his butt. And I'm like, no, you won't. Seriously, rolled my eyes. Then he gets traded. Then there's Tim Cato's piece on DLLS, in which he talks about Kidd resenting the trade, especially from an angle of like, you make this trade in the middle of the season. That we built this team around Luka. Now we have to adjust to Anthony Davis, and maybe there's some frustration on Kidd's part there. Do I think Jason Kidd knew it was happening the day of? No. I think he did find out at the 11th hour. But I think Kidd's frustrations and feelings played a part in them moving on from Luka Doncic. Do I think Jason Kidd could be frustrated and upset and resentful about the timing in which it went down and how it went down? For sure. But I don't know if he would feel the same way if they went about it the way over the summer. Like, if they truly took this into the summer, like a lot of people have suggested, obviously with Nico, we know why he didn't, which is funny. But I feel like a lot of people you talk to have the same kind of thoughts. Like, hey, if you're going to move on from Luka Doncic, you just can't move on from him that way. You got to take it to the summer. You got to open it up for, a bidding war. And it goes from there. Nico obviously felt differently. Rob Pelinka, I don't know, put a potion in his coffee at Ascension and was like, hey, you know what? I don't think we're going to trade for Luka unless you keep it quiet. It's like, okay. It's like the ultimate call your bluff move. And Nico bought it. Sorry, now my mouth's getting dry. So with Jason Kidd, it's like, would he have been as upset if they took it through the summer and then they made a bidding war and it's like, here you go. Let's see what we get the highest offer. If it's Anthony Davis and stuff, then you still want to do that. You still make a similar move with LA. Still would have had the backlash. Still would have had everything. But something tells me that Kidd wouldn't be as upset because it's the off season. You got time. You got time to get something to eat. You got time for all that. So when you go back to that question of like, did Jason Kidd know? Was he upset about it? All the stuff. I think it's very accurate to say that Jason Kidd, he wasn't knocking anyone's door down to try to reverse this trade. But did he know it was happening the day of? No. And I believe that. The frustrations with Luka was really, really real. I hope from everything, I mean, there's so many people that don't want to believe this was Nico's decision. All this came from ownership. Nico's the mouthpiece. It's inevitable in the comments below already. It's like, why are you still talking about Nico Harrison? He was just the fall guy from the ownership and all this stuff. Guys, this was Nico Harrison's decision. Like, I don't know how else we want to like break that down or say it or can be reported. He said it. Like, you just can't. I don't know how else to talk about it. And there was a lot of frustration around the organization and with Jason Kidd, but was it enough for you to trade Luka Doncic? It shouldn't have been, but it was for them. Let's take another quick break, and I want to come back with one last quote about Luka from Tim McMahon and the idea of roster construction.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Yeah. Insert more music. Happy Friday, by the way. We have a subtext program. We're doing a lot of stuff on there. Nick did a Q&A on that. We have a lot of draft stuff coming. I'm so excited for this draft, guys. So excited. Also, random note, I'm going to be in the country of Romania next week. So it's kind of close to Slovenia. Yeah. But anyway, it's super random, but if you are a Mavs fan in Romania, hit me up. I'll tell you a couple of the cities I'm going to. And actually speaking at a conference in Romania for some church stuff. So yeah, let me know. Got any Romania tips? Let me know that too, because I don't know a ton about the country and I would love to learn more about it. Here's Isaac's travel log. Let's talk about Jason Kidd, or not Jason Kidd. Let's talk about Luka. Tim McMahon says this on Bomani's show too when he was the latest interview. Obviously, go listen to that. He says, I'm not going to tell you Luka is low maintenance. I'm just going to tell you on the superstar spectrum in the NBA, he's not toward the top. He's not. I mean, we can go down the list of superstars. There are several who are more high maintenance than Luka. He says, I have somebody in the book who says, and I remember reading this in the book. Somebody told Tim, ask Miami if they'd rather have dealt with Luka or Jimmy Butler for the last few months leading up to the trade deadline. That's just one example. I know for a lot of Luka stans and for all of us who love Luka, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe reporting when we don't like it, right? Like if we don't like reporting, this is in general. I've said this the other day. If we don't like certain reporting, then the media is the problem. We hate the media. If we like the reporting and it's like, yes, I agree with that. It's confirmation bias. Then that reporter is so plugged in and so good. It's awesome. But a lot of the stuff that Tim McMahon had been reporting before the trade, after the trade, was stuff you heard from a lot of different people around the organization. It's like, is Luka the ideal person to build a team and culture and all that stuff around? Is it ideal? I wouldn't say no, but who is, right? Like, not everybody is Steph Curry and Tim Duncan. Like, every superstar in the league has their type of flaws, right? Would Giannis, like, if it would be awesome if Giannis could shoot threes like Steph Curry. Or, Jokic had an 8-pack and was just like flying around blocking shots like a Hakeem Olajuwon. Or, I mean, you could just like go down the line and try to like find your different things and weaknesses or negatives about different superstars in the league. So it's like, was it ideal to build? Like, you look at some of the, if you look at Luka's defense or you look at the lifestyle choices and all this stuff, especially like long term, and this was like a long term bet from the Mavs and stuff too. It's like, do you wish he changed a lot of things? Yes, that would be awesome. We were on this show for the past couple of years being like, man, hope he takes this series. Hope he does this. Hope he does that while still going to the finals. Like, not everybody, like I said, is a Steph or a Tim Duncan that's one of these like prime professionals that teams just love to build around, that exemplifies every single box you can think to check off. But it's still not like enough to trade him. Like, you can sit there and say, yes, all of this stuff or these 3 or 4 things needs to change about Luka, and I hope it does change at some point in his career, especially as he starts to get older in the NBA. But you still went to 2 conference finals and a finals. It still wasn't enough to trade him. I go to this text we got the other day. We have a text with different Dallas media people, and Kevin Gray sends this text, and he was like, is Luka like the most criticized like star that we've had in the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years? I forgot what time frame he put on it. And a couple of us were chiming in about different people. And obviously you go to LeBron in 2011 before the title, that getting embarrassed by JJ Barea in the greatest title ever in 2011. And just like LeBron hadn't gotten over the hump, he'd went to Miami. There's different, how did he quit on Cleveland? There was so much criticism back then of LeBron that, I mean, now it's crazy. That was like what, 14, 15 years ago. But if you were in the NBA world back then and you were, you remember that stuff, the criticism for LeBron was just absolutely insane. So I'd still put LeBron over Luka, but Luka's reached that point, and it's kind of, and this is what I want to remind some people, especially like Luka stans, if you still listen to this podcast, which I think a lot of you do. It's kind of the circle of life for stars, right? Like, almost every star in the league goes through this circle of media coverage. It's you get into the league and it's the honeymoon period. It is it's the shiny new toy, shiny new player. Everyone's excited. You're breaking records. You're setting the course of your career. Everybody's like, what if you're going to be a top 5 player, top 10 player, comping you to these different players and all this stuff. But unless you win a title in your first few years in the league, the circle of life is going to come for you when it comes to media coverage. At some point, you're going to start to be hated by people. It's going to come for you. It's going to come, I remember people saying about Giannis early on. It's like, all right, at some point, what's the cutoff point in which if you don't win a title and all the stuff, then it starts coming for you. People start, he can't shoot. So, I mean, can he play? Like, how do you build it? Is it enough? And people just start breaking it down. And what was once this like honeymoon period of like the shiny new object that everyone loves, you get 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in, and then it slowly starts to shift a little bit. Oh, man, his whining is just holding it back. Man, he's just really not in a lot of good shape, right? Hey, what if he is he even taking it serious? Does he even care? Like all the talking points start because it's almost once again like the circle of life, kind of like LeBron. He starts in Cleveland and that first game against the Sacramento Kings. From then, I mean, it was everybody's drooling over LeBron until they weren't. Until it was, this guy's a chokester. He can't win a title. He's all the different stuff. It comes for every star in the league. It feels weird to say this. It's going to come for Wemby. Like everybody loves Wemby right now, right? Like Wemby has one of the highest approval ratings. You know what's starting to shift a little bit right now? The Anthony Edwards approval rating, right? I mean, you go back just 2 years ago, it was like, oh my gosh, Anthony Edwards. He's the greatest thing to walk the earth. And now you're starting to see a little media stuff here and there. It's like, well, will he? And it's like starting to like really dissect him then until he gets to a finals, and it's going to come for Victor Wembanyama. I don't know what it will be. I don't know all the stuff, but eventually it will come for him like it came for Luka and a lot of the other past stars before him. The difference is most teams look the other way. Most teams put their head down, put one foot in front of the other and say, yeah, I wish this thing could change about him. But I know every team in the league's looking for a guy like him. And that's what the Mavs just didn't do. And that's what sucks. Like every team in the league who goes through this with their stars, they just kind of double down on it. It's like, all right, yeah, I wish this, player did this differently, or I wish he acted differently, or I wish he took this more seriously, or I wish he weighed this, whether there's more or less. I wish he did this in the offseason. I wish every team probably has their list of small wishes that they wish they could change about their superstar player. But every team in the league who has one of those alpha Batman type of cornerstone players say, well, the hardest thing is finding that type of player. And we got to have that type of player. So it's not even like an option. Like you just deal with it. You figure it out. And heck, you've been to a finals. Almost every team that has dealt with that in the past, it's still the hope of trying to get to a finals. Like it's still the man, I wish they would change this stuff. But look, we've made the playoffs. Like we've made the playoffs twice in these first 8 years. I think we can get to a title, to a finals run with this guy. It's like this hope. It's this I think we can do that. Dallas has been there. Like Dallas was there. Like they went to a conference finals. They've been to the playoffs all these times. They went to an NBA finals the year before, and yet they still looked at Luka like in sweet tea and whining at the officials and said, you know what? I think I'm gonna meet Rob at Ascension again. It's like, so will Nico's legacy be defined by this trade? Absolutely. There's nothing at this point that won't define his legacy more than this Luka trade. Did Jason Kidd know about it? Yeah, I think he played a part in it, but did he know about it the same day? Did he learn about it in the 11th hour? Yeah, I think he found out in the 11th hour that, hey, this thing that we've kind of briefly talked about in the past and you've shared a lot of frustrations with, and if we had a different type of player, like you wouldn't be that mad about, hey, that? Oh, well, I'm going to tell you right now, the 11th hour. Did I think it was more like that? Yeah. Does Luka have his problems and things to change that I hope he does change to truly hit the full potential of him in the NBA? Yeah. Was it enough to trade him and give up? Not at all. Oh man. All right. I think that's it. That's what I'm ending on today. It's a Friday pod. I was going to do a draft thing. I'm all into the draft right now, guys. We have more draft stuff coming. So if you're not into the draft or you don't want to hear about prospects, then I don't know what to tell you. So yeah. Hopefully this is the last time we hear from Nico Harrison or any of that stuff for a while, because I'd love to just talk about draft and other stuff. Enjoy some playoff basketball. Cheer for Luka. I'll be cheering for Luka, but I'll also be cheering for his team to lose. But I hope Luka drops like 50 million triple doubles and then, I don't know, wears a Montana State jersey to leave the game. We'll be back on Sunday night. Nick and myself will be back on Sunday night. I think we're doing some stuff on the off season, and then I'll be out next week for my trip to Romania, but I'll be back fairly soon. Peace out. Boom.